Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. Hey, you've probably heard about the Mastermind that we hosted in Austin over the last 4 years for all of our podcast listeners. And this last March, we had a fantastic time, a bunch of amazing speakers, and great fellowship. Well, I wanted to take some of those speaker talks that we had and release them to you guys here on the podcast so you can get the value that our members got when they were there, and also make you think about maybe joining us next year. So we've just released the dates for next year. It's February 25th through 27th, and we're only selling tickets for the next 30 or 40 days, and then we're going to lock down the orders, and so we can start, sending out the value ads for all of that. And if you end up joining the podcast Mastermind, if you end up signing for the Mastermind, you get to become a part of our private Facebook group, our private Circle app, all sorts of referrals between different people. And then you'll also get recordings, all the recordings for the past several years of Masterminds that we've had. But, just so you can hear a little bit more about kind of what you missed, get some added value just for being a listener, because I appreciate all of you guys that are here. Here is one of the clips of that, or here's one of the, 45-minute talks. I hope you guys love it.
All right, do me a favor. If you have faith in your life, on the count of 3, I want you to clap once. 1, 2, 3. If you have fear in your life, I want you to clap twice on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All of us in this room have both of those. We have faith and we have fear. And I want to share my perspective on faith and fear. But before I do that, I want you to reflect on it for a moment. In your life, when you have faith, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Most importantly, how do you act when you have faith in your life? Now, when you have fear in your life, how does that feel? How does that show up for you? Take a second, jot it down in your notes. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And again, with fear, most importantly, how do you act when fear is present? Like I said, we all have both of those things constantly, but I don't think we often reflect on what it means to have faith or have fear and what that means. Now, I'm going to share my perspective with you guys on faith and fear. So imagine this. You're standing on the edge of a river. You're looking down at the water, and you have faith. You have faith that when you make that jump, when you make that leap, regardless of how deep it is, you can swim. Regardless of how cold it is, you cold plunge every day so you don't give a shit. Regardless of what happens, when you make that leap with faith, how do you show up when you're standing on the edge of the water? Now, alternatively, you're standing on that same edge of the water, and you don't know that you can swim. You don't know how deep the water is. You don't know what's underneath the water, and maybe you're afraid of cold water, and you're standing there with fear. How do you show up? How do you think about making that next leap? Now, what's interesting is when you finally make that step, regardless if it's faith or fear, from my perspective, it's all the same. Regardless of how deep the water is, with faith, you find a way to swim. Regardless of how cold the water is, with fear, you find a way to persevere. Surround yourself with amazing people like are inside of this room, and you persevere. The interesting thing from my perspective, y'all, is that faith and fear are the same. We have a strong conviction for both, and yet we can see neither of them. You might have the most faith ever in God, the universe, your relationship with your spouse, but can you see it? No, but you believe it. And fear is the same. You might be afraid to make that listing. You might be afraid to make that cold calling. You might be afraid of that first rental property, but you can't see what actually you're afraid of. And so I'm here today to share with you guys some new stuff, if that's okay with y'all. I can't do the same thing I did last year because there was a lot of hands that went up that heard it. But I'm going to share some new stuff with y'all, and I'm going to share some new stuff that literally nobody has seen or heard. So David and I are writing a book, and I'm going to share some stuff with you from the book that we're writing. Now you're going to get to hear from David tomorrow, who's fascinating, incredible, like just an awesome human. And he's going to share some perspectives with you guys on totally different subjects. But if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to share some new stuff with you. Anybody opposed to that? All right, cool. So what I want to talk to you guys about is I believe that there are the four horsemen of our lives. They're the four things that hold us back. They're the four things that keep us stuck where we are today in this moment. Those four things are fear, limiting beliefs, resistance to change, and a lack of self-awareness. Regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what you're working on, those four things are holding you back. If you dig deep enough, you will identify it's one of those four things. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is not creating momentum, but it's about creating momentum. How many of you have experienced momentum inside of your life? Yeah. Now, I want you all to experience momentum. And I even put the definition up there for you all, because I believe that momentum is momentum that you are constantly and consciously choosing. You are in control of it. It is not just going regardless of where you decide to go. It is a choice. It is a constant choice, and you are in control of that choice. And I believe with the A, B, and double C that I'm about to share with you guys, that regardless of what the four horsemen look like inside of your life, you will be able to accomplish momentum in your life, and everybody in this room deserves that. So we walk into this room. How many of you are feeling like it's a tough market? Yeah, interest rates kind of suck, right? It's not 2020 anymore. It's not listings galore, life is easy, multiple showings, lines out the door, right? You guys probably showed up at this event feeling like maybe you're at the bottom of a hill. You're looking up and you're like, I can see my goals, I can see where I want to go, but I'm at the bottom of the hill. Now, what's interesting about this is at the bottom of the hill, everything seems hard. How many of you feel like things seem hard right now? Yeah, I do. Feel like I'm getting kicked in the teeth constantly. Life seems hard right now. And when you're at the bottom of the hill, it seems impossible to how am I going to get there? How am I going to get those listings? How am I going to get those leads? How am I going to get those investment properties? Now, alternatively, I would argue that everybody in this room is in this position. You are in a rut, and you don't recognize just how close you are to the top of the hill where you can actually achieve the momentum that you desire or you deserve in your life. You're in this position where you're looking up and you still see this top of the hill and you don't know how long it's going to take to get there. But I promise you, you're closer than you understand. You're closer than you recognize, and all of you recognize that or you wouldn't be in this room. You know that it's one hack, one tip, one trick, one book that Derek just passed out that could be that tipping point to get you on the slope we all want to be. The downward slope, right? We want to be that giant snowball of slightly wet snow that's able to compact quickly and build momentum as we move down the hill. Things become easier. Everything looks possible. And fear starts to go away. How do we get there? How do we accomplish that? I believe that it's an A, a B, and two C's. And I'm going to share those things with you guys today. The other thing I'll talk about real quickly is if you find yourself in this position, which I feel like I'm in right now, I'm working my butt off and I'm not seeing the progress that I desire or I think should show up for me. I'm frustrated. We have 3 young kids, 3 kids 5 and under. It's chaos. Like, I just think we're finally making progress on brushing our teeth. And then my daughter starts to logic with me that she ate apples last night so she doesn't have to brush her teeth because apples wash her teeth. Like, dude, we were just making progress, right? And I feel like I'm stuck. And I said this last year and I say this all the time. The only difference between a rut and a grave is how long you choose to stay there. How long you choose to stay there, not how long you let life force you to stay there. You are choosing to be in that rut. I am choosing to be in that rut. And I think if we make a conscious choice, we can get out of it whenever we desire. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the ranch. Now, Aaron got me super excited. I was flying back to Austin last night, and Aaron texted me and said, can we host day 2 at your ranch? I was like, great, sure. We'll clear out the garage. We'll set up tables. Awesome. He's like, I just wanted to make you flinch. I'm like, well, it's pretty hard to do with me, but I was really excited. I was super excited. So fear, right? Fear is one of the things that holds us back. Fear is one of the things that limits us. One of my greatest fears is that my kids are going to grow up to not know and understand their grandparents. Now, I've been super fortunate that my parents, when they both retired in September of 2023, they moved down to Austin. They've been present, they've been around, they've become a part of my kids' life. It's magical. My in-laws, on the other hand, that's a different story. Now, my wife is an only child, But she's an only child of two incredible, hardworking, I call them the Busch Light billionaires because they love drinking Busch Light out of a can, and they're financially free and successful and amazing people, but you'd have no idea. But they've lived in the same small town their entire life. Literally a 15-mile radius town their entire life. And they said, have a kid, we'll move. So we tried that. It didn't work. They said, have a second kid, we'll move. We tried that. It didn't work. They said, when you have a third kid, I'm like, no. Like, I know this game. Like, we're going to have a third kid anyways, but you're not going to move. And so finally, I went to my father-in-law one day and I said, like, dude, what are you waiting for? He's like, oh, when we get older, we'll come down. And I said, Terry, when you get older, the kids aren't going to give a shit about you. Right now, you are Superman. They want to be with you every day. They want you to come to school and eat lunch with them. They want you to pick them up. They're not going to push your wheelchair when you get older. They're going to be with their friends. What are you waiting for? And finally, he said, I don't know what I would do with all my time. Now, this guy is probably the handiest human being I know. He lives on 5 acres in Wisconsin with my mother-in-law, literally splits his own firewood. So the way they heat their house is firewood. He literally splits his own firewood all summer, builds it in a giant stack, and then hauls it in all winter to keep their house warm. And he's like, I don't know what I would do. And so finally it hit me. I was like, well, I'll find something for you to do. I'm going to buy 20 acres, 18 minutes from our house, of overgrown pasture, of endless projects, and I'm going to start with AIM. I'm going to have a vision for how to get you down to Austin, Texas. And so in May of 2024, my wife and I bought 20 acres in Dripping Springs, which is about 18 minutes from our house, because my vision, my aim for how to overcome the fear I was having of my in-laws not being present was, I will create a life here for you that eliminates all of the fears you have. But I did it with AIM. I did it with a vision. I overcame fear with AIM. And so if you find yourself in a place of fear, or you find yourself in a place of your story's not working, or you find yourself, I don't need it if it doesn't work, it's no big deal. If you find yourself in that moment, the first question I would ask you is, what are you aiming for? How many of you watched Trump last night? I mean, like him, hate him, love him, don't like him, whatever your perspective is, you cannot say that man does not have aim and a vision for where he wants to take himself and this country. And I think inside of this room, every single day, if you do not wake up with aim and a vision for where you want to go, social media, your family, your kids, your clients, they will give you a vision for your life. Do you know on average we see over 10,400 ads a day and we don't even know it? If you don't have aim, you will get sucked into that vortex and you will become a part of someone else's aim, a part of someone else's vision. So we buy this ranch, right? It's May 2024, we buy this ranch. Now, you're looking at me going like, this kid's wearing Amazon sneakers and Amazon sweatshirt, like clearly is not a rancher. You would be correct. I've never driven a tractor, never been around animals, never worked cattle, never understood how to buy or sell cattle, never understood what it takes to feed cattle, but I had a vision for what it was going to take to get my in-laws in. And so what we did was, ironically, when we put in the offer on the house, I didn't look at the calendar to understand that the tight closing window I put in place to make sure we got the property overlapped with our trip to Hawaii. So thank God that you can now close virtually and you can have a notary, a mobile notary come to your hotel in Hawaii. You can sign closing docs and everything. But I didn't have the crystal clear aim of how I was going to make all those little pieces work. But what I did do was I started. So many of us fail to actually start. We fail to actually begin, which is the B. We fail to actually take action. Now, for me, with this vision, I want to get my in-laws down to Austin, Texas. And so what did I do? Well, there was 10 Black Angus on the property. The old owners were very elderly. They didn't take care of the animals properly, so I didn't really want those animals. Yes, I could have taken them and had the beef from them, but I don't know what they were eating. I don't know how healthy they were. I don't know when they had been vaccinated. Like, I don't want to take those risks. And so before we even closed on the property, shouldn't say this out loud, but I actually sold those 10 Black Angus and had them removed from the property before the property was even mine. And then the first day we got back to Austin after owning the ranch, I had already begun. My parents were there. My 88-year-old grandma was there. My children were there. My wife was there. Our friends showed up. We had 6 Texas Longhorns delivered. Now, I bought those off of Craigslist. About 30 minutes after that, we had a tractor delivered. Didn't buy that off of Craigslist, but I probably should have. We had 2 ATVs delivered 30 minutes after that. And literally, I began immediately of bringing this vision into life. I took action so freaking fast that I made a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong. But here's the thing, action beats inaction 100% of the time. You will never take an action and go, shit, I wish I would have just sat on my hands and done nothing. Because from action, you can gain awareness, you can gain knowledge, and you can take that knowledge and you can apply it elsewhere in your life. And so if all of a sudden you have these limiting beliefs of, I am not a rancher, I don't know anything about cattle, I have no idea how to drive a tractor, and you use those limiting beliefs or those stories you're telling yourselves to not take action, you will never begin. And then what happens is you actually will then become everything you say you're not. You won't be a rancher. You won't have cattle. You won't have a tractor because you didn't put yourself in a position to actually begin and build the momentum inside of the life that you deserve. So we have now a tractor, we have the Longhorns. Then what I started to recognize that I failed to realize in the moment was that the most powerful part of the ranch wasn't luring my in-laws in, because it hasn't worked yet, but it wasn't luring my in-laws in. The most powerful part of the ranch was the memories that were being made on the property with my family, my friends, my children, myself, people that are coming on the podcast. Like, it became a memory-making machine. And I recognized quickly the momentum that was building from this ranch. And so what did I do? I decided to figure out how can I compound the momentum that I have, right? Because if I'm going to consciously choose this and create more momentum, then I need to compound it, which is the first C. How do we compound it? So what did I do? I doubled down. I didn't buy 1 Scottish Highland, I bought 3. We didn't buy 1 baby goat, we bought 2. We didn't buy 1 zebra, we bought 2. And I said, everything I'm going to do at this property is going to be on a pursuit to making memories for the people I love. If my in-laws come as a byproduct of that, that's awesome. But I can't force them to come here anymore. And what's really cool about this is not only has it made memories for me, but literally my dad, who's retired, who is going to go get a part-time job, now works at the ranch. I saw him this morning. I see my dad more now than I did probably as a child. Now, he cusses out the chickens, he hates the zebras, can't stand the longhorn, like he complains about every aspect of it. But I'm having more momentum in my life because I consciously made a choice of how can I bring my family along on this journey. And what's also really cool is we took this concept and we said, how do we make more memories? And for Christmas, we invited 15 families. We had like 35 kids come out. We hired a Santa Claus, and we had photos with Santa on the ranch for all of our friends and all of our family. The kids were running around like chaos, feeding all of the different animals. The kids were in holding the chickens. The chickens don't really like to be held. The kids were holding the chickens. They're feeding the zebras. They sat on hay bales, heard a story from Santa, then they all got to take photos with him. And what I recognized in that moment was, if I continue to compound the momentum I have already inside of my life, I can overcome any limiting belief that I have. I can overcome any fears that I have because I'm following the flow and the energy of what's bringing me joy and what's bringing me energy. What then happens is you've got this momentum, right? You're this giant snowball coming down the mountain. And what happens is we start to lose control. And so the second C in the ABCC is control. As you compound, and many of you have seen this inside of your business, you don't have the right systems. You don't have the right people. You lose control of the momentum you already gained. And so as we were building this momentum inside of the ranch, I got super excited about this idea of having eggs. In my 5-year vision, which I talked a little bit about last year, one of my goals was that one of my first kids' business was going to be selling farm fresh eggs. I thought that would be such a cool business. You got to learn how to clean the chicken, take care of the chickens. Then you got to sell the eggs, which means you got to go learn how to communicate and sell the eggs. Then you got to go collect back the cartons because the cartons cost 70 cents. So we got to get those cartons back. I thought it would be incredible until my dumbass bought a house in an HOA. Can't have chickens. But when we bought the ranch, they had this old chicken coop on the property. I got so excited that I was compounding all of these things in my life that I lost control. I lost control because I didn't have the right knowledge or the right people in my life to call me out. I lost control because I went and bought 26 chickens and thought that we could have this free-range chicken concept. Little did I know that the foxes and the coyotes would view us as old country buffet and come every single day and clean up a couple more, a couple more, a couple more. We went from 26 chickens down to 3. I lost control. Now, what happened in that moment is my wife looked at me and said, "Why are we doing this? Is this the right thing for us to do?" We were in that little rut phase, right? We were in the rut. And she's like, "Why are we doing this? This is a bad idea. We have no idea what we're doing." And she was right. We had no idea what we were doing. But I knew I was just one person away from getting the knowledge I needed. I knew I was just one good move away from getting the knowledge I needed to bring that momentum back into my life and continue to compound everything I'd been working on. Fast forward to today, we have 40-something chickens. I can't count them. If any of you can count them, you can have as many eggs as you want for entirety. They're very hard to count. And then we've gotten so excited about this that my kids saw at Tractor Supply that they were selling baby chicks. And so we just raised 24 chicks at our house, and literally this morning moved them from the house to the ranch where they're living in a box. And I figured out how to gain control back into the vision I had for my life, back into the plan I had for my life, and rebuild the momentum we had already created inside of our vision. So you have to start with aim. You have to decide, where do you want to go? And then you have to begin. So many of us fail that step, and that's like the most important step, but we have analysis paralysis. We have fear of, if I step off, I don't know how cold this water is going to be. Who cares? If I step off, I don't know how deep this is going to be. Who cares? If you have the right people and you have the right knowledge, belief in yourself, you'll find the way or make the way to figure it out. But you have to begin. And then you have to compound it. You have to say, wow, this is working for me. How do I double down here, right? Pat Hyben said in his book, 6 Steps to 7 Figures, is compound your wins. Stack your wins on top of each other. When you find those wins, keep stacking them. That to me is the definition of momentum. And then you have to have some control. Without control, the wheels fall off. Without control, the leads fall through the system and fall to the wayside. Without control, the 26 chickens become 23 chickens and the foxes and the coyotes become fat and healthy. We have to have control. And if we do all of those things, those 4 horsemen I talked about earlier, things like fear, they become irrelevant because you have everything you need to overcome anything that shows up for you inside of your life. And then what I want to talk to you guys a little bit about is this book. I'm super excited about this book. So David and I spent tons of time together. I have learned so much from this man. He's an absolute incredible human being, one of the best business visionaries I have ever seen. And so what I wanted to do was figure out a way to get you guys access to the book early. Now there's literally only 3 chapters written. Technically it's 2 in an intro, but I'll call it 3 chapters because it sounds better. So I wanted to figure out how could I give you guys a copy of the book. On the heels of us launching the podcast, and we've got some amazing guests that we've already had on the show that haven't dropped yet. People like Aaron, we've got guests like Daniel Del Rio, David Green, David Perret, all coming on. I've had a privilege to talk to a guy named Sahil Bloom. If you guys haven't seen his book, The 5 Types of Wealth, just came out, hit New York Times bestseller. And so I said, how can I bring all of this together? And so what I'm willing to do for you guys is anybody that subscribes to the YouTube podcast and sends me a DM of the picture of them subscribed to my social media with their email, I will send you the first 3 copies of the first 3 chapters of the book, watermarked, obviously, because it's all in draft form. But you guys can all have access to the concepts that I just talked about, at least the introduction of them, right now. And I bet the book won't come out for at least a year. I'm willing to do that. You guys have to promise you won't share it or, blast it on social media or whatever, because it's going to change. It's a rough draft, but I'll send you the watermarked first 3 chapters. I think the first 3 chapters, I got value out of it and I'm excited about it. I think it was really powerful to understand that if I just harness the A, B, double C's, I can overcome anything that shows up inside of my life. What I want to leave you guys with before we go to questions is every single one of you inside this room deserves to have more momentum in your life. You deserve to make the choice to have more momentum in your life. And most importantly, you owe it to yourself to look yourself in the mirror and say, whatever is holding me back, I have the tools, I have the knowledge, I have the confidence, and I have the community to overcome it and go achieve the life I desire and deserve. All right, let's open it up for questions, guys.
One here in front.
Oh, and I brought some hats for the ranch, so people that are brave enough to ask a question get a hat. Go ahead, and you get to choose because you're one of the first.
Well, Chris from Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Okay.
I just want to say I appreciate you coming back. This is my 4th year here. It's fun watching your journey for the last 4 years.
Thanks.
Your Instagram posts are great.
Thank you.
I've been following along for a while. One of the fun ones was you were on the plane with the guy all dressed up.
Oh, that was
And he
ridiculous.
said, "How can you be successful dressed the way you are?"
That was ridiculous. That was the
awesome.
best. That was the best.
But one of my problems is I am the type of person, my personality is I won't begin
Mhm.
until everything's perfect.
Mhm.
And following your story on this ranch has really made me think about that and take action. So congrats on this success
Thanks,
and
man.
everything you do. And thanks again for
Thanks.
coming back.
What color?
I'll take black.
Black.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thank you. One of the things I left out about the story is those first 6 Longhorns we bought. I didn't understand that there was a lot of money in Longhorns, but now I understand that there's like a business in this. Like I thought they were just like cute lawn ornaments that people drove past and were like, oh, look at that. That's a Longhorn. But once I figured out you could make money off of it, I was like, well, shit, I'll make money off of it. That sounds way more fun. So the first 5 of the first 6 I bought, the most important part of a Longhorn is their genetic, their pedigree, and then their makeup, their composition, right? 5 of the first 6 I bought were absolute trash. Like if you're trying to make money off of it. And so literally we bought all these Longhorns and then like 4 weeks later, I learned all this information about it. And 4 weeks later, I went and sold 5 of the first 6 that I bought. And that was another moment where my wife was like, what are we doing? We have no idea what we're doing. We're idiots. Like, why are we doing this? This is stupid. You're on Craigslist every day talking to Steve. Like, what are you doing? But I just kept taking action. And what's happened from that is not only do I now have a vision for what the ranch can become from a monetary, like making money perspective, but I have some connections with some of the coolest, most down-to-earth people that I've never would have met. I mean, I'm going in May to a sale. The guy is known as the King of Land. He's the largest landowner in Texas outside of the King Ranch. And he's in the Longhorn space. Now I can call him at any time and I can have a conversation with him. Never would that have been possible if it weren't for these beautiful, stupid, all they do is eat animals. But I continue to take action towards the vision and the aim I have for my life. And this has just been a part of it. Thanks for sharing, man.
I'll go. Okay. So kind of going off of what Chris said, same thing, like following in the last year has been amazing. Like you talked about your vision of a farm. And then like you said, 2 months later, you're like I literally told Sarah, I was like, I'm pretty sure he was in Hawaii when he bought it.
I was.
Yeah. And then just, I think like a lesson we can all, sorry, these chairs like are a lot. Just watching, it's like, you'd be like, oh, I have 3 logos for the ranch. And then the next day you're like, here's our logo. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the decisions you make, which obviously we're seeing the social media aspect of it. But I feel like you'd like say, I think I'm going to do this. And then literally a week later, it was like happening.
Yeah.
So like, that's been amazing. And like Chris said, a big like eye opener of just do it and do it later. But my question is, last year you touched on like your wife and you guys having different, like, she's not as much of a dreamer, I guess, as you are. So with this whole ranch, and I feel like my husband is you, like he buys 4-wheelers and we have a 3 and a 5-year-old and it terrifies me. And like, so I want you to talk a little bit. Like my question is like how, I guess to help me, like how has Melissa, like watching you aim and dream and all of that, like how does she buy in? Yeah,
that's a good question. What color hat? Orange? Okay, cool. That's my favorite. So thank you so much for the question. The first thing I will say is one of the greatest gifts that I've been given from David is the rate at which he makes decisions. And so I recognize that the rate at which I make decisions allows me to gain awareness faster than most people. Now, the one thing that I will touch on there is I don't make decisions to figure out if I made the right decision or the wrong decision. Once you get into judgment, you're stuck in those four corners of the box forever. I make decisions to gain awareness, and then I use that awareness to make more choices and more decisions. Now, it does come back to bite you when you say you're going to buy a zebra, and then the lady you're buying it from calls and says, hey, the person that was going to buy the male one had a family emergency. Would you take two of them? And you just say, yeah, sure, no problem. And you don't ask questions. Or when you buy a miniature potbelly pig and then everybody gives you shit that it needs a friend. And so you go on Craigslist and find another one, but you don't do research that they reach reproductive age at 3 months old and they're only pregnant for 120 days. And so now we're waiting any day now to have 12 to 18 miniature potbelly pigs. So like, it can bite you. Don't get me wrong. It can bite you. But all of this is awareness, right? And so bringing my wife along on the journey, there's a lot of asking for forgiveness, not permission, that occurs.
So my husband does too.
Which is not necessarily the best thing. But I think the greatest way for me to bring my wife along on the journey is show her, don't tell her. And so I don't necessarily try to justify our logic with her. I try to go back to like, hey, remember the first day we had the ranch and my 88-year-old grandma was driving the four-wheelers? That's why I think we should do this. That's why I think we should do that. Now, Melissa is the greatest support system I have. She's also my biggest critic. But without Melissa, I wouldn't be half the man I am. But she also understands that without me, hopefully she would say this, that she wouldn't be half the human she is too. And so one of the things that I would say she does a really, really good job of is she just accepts me for all my faults and flaws and understands like I'm just wired wrong from her perspective. I would argue it's different, but wrong from her perspective. And then, I will have conversations with her about like, what's the plan? What's the vision? The neighbor next to us has 2,700 acres. And so now my goal is to get them to sell me 203. So I have 223 acres because I like round odd numbers. That's a whole nother story. But so I'm trying to get them to sell me land. And now I want us to build a house out there. I want us to move out there. But I also now have this crazy idea of like, let's just sell all of our shit and move out to this old farmhouse that exists there and just like be a family. That's not something I'm just going to do without consulting her, right? And so I started having a conversation with her about that. And she brought up a lot of really good points of like why that might be a bad idea. And so those are moments where I'm like, okay, let me think about that. Let me listen to this, etc. Whether we have a four-wheeler or not isn't going to change our family's destiny. So when we bought the four-wheelers, she wasn't necessarily on board. And she's like, well, the kids absolutely have to wear a helmet whenever they drive it. It's like, okay, cool. Like we'll buy helmets. So now we have 6 helmets in the garage. And anytime a kid gets on the four-wheeler, they have to wear a helmet. So I adopt whatever she's looking for from each decision I make. I try not to resist those. Now I do it sometimes. I'm not always the best at that. I'd be lying if I said I was. But I would say like, she understands the vision I have for my life and she supports it, doesn't try to get in the way of it. And that like becomes the wind beneath my wings that I need. And I do the same for her. Like she's got some crazy perspectives that I'm like, you've lost your mind. But who am I to then go judge her and say that that's a bad decision? I'm like, well, whether I believe in that or don't believe in that, I'm going to support you because that's your perspective and we're partners. Hopefully that answers it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Caitlin literally stole my question. So I'm going to, evolve a little bit here. So speaking of like buy-in, like, let's take, my question was specifically that question. So like you have this podcast, you have your vision beyond just like what the farm is just for your family, but in the world of like investors and realtors and we are developing clients and our businesses. How do you get people to buy into your vision as far as not your family, like not your wife? You've got this podcast. How do you get people to buy into your, that don't know you?
Yeah. What color hat?
Yellow.
So, the way that I get people to buy into my vision is I first seek to understand what their vision for their life is. I'm fortunate I have 2 incredible people here that work with me, Holly and Haley. And they're bought into my vision because I'm bought into their vision. And they know that when I achieve my vision, they'll achieve their vision. And I know when they achieve their vision, I'll achieve my vision. And so the way that I get people bought in is I try to understand what is their vision. The way that I got Sahil on the podcast was I was trying to understand what's his vision. Well, his vision was New York Times bestseller. I'm like, well, let me help you get there. And then in return, he's given me everything I could ask for and more, right? And so when you guys are doing transactions, when you guys are dealing with clients, I think the most important thing you guys can do is understand what their vision is and then make sure that their vision fits inside of your world. Their vision might be owning a house. Great. That helps me with my transactions. Their vision might be owning 10 rental properties. Great. Let me help you get there. And then how does that fuel my vision, right? So I think it's really important, if you want people to buy into your vision, for you to first buy into theirs. And most of us don't take the time, energy, or effort to really understand what a human wants, what a human needs, and what a human desires. And if you just do that for your clients, they will buy into whatever vision you have because you're bought into theirs. And at the end of the day, what we all crave more than anything is just people believing in us. We just want somebody to believe in us. So the way I do it is I just try to understand their vision and then tie that vision back into how it's going to serve me. Make sure we're aligned, make sure we're clear, make sure we communicate around it, but then make sure that I really show up for them inside of their vision. Yes, sir. You don't get to choose a color.
Brandon Floyd, Spruce Real Estate, Baltimore, Maryland. I just wanted to touch on that. That's my favorite quote by Zig Ziglar. I feel like you said it a different way, and I like the vision because I'm very visual myself. But he said, the best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. Because when I first started my career in sales, I was definitely like trying to figure out how to close that deal right then and there. I'm like, why aren't they buying? But I wasn't really seeing how I could serve them. But the best way to do anything in life is to see their vision, but help them get what they want. And I really like that quote and your question.
Yeah, it works. It works for everything. It works for your kids, works for your family, works for your spouse, everybody. Other questions?
Caleb's been dying in the back over there. You still have a question over there, Caleb?
There's two in the back, and then we'll be done. No, not yet. I don't want to talk about it. No, they had the nerve the last time they were down here 2 weeks ago. They're like, we think we're finally ready to buy a house. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, really? Like, this is all yours. Wherever you want. Just stay here. Whatever you need. I don't know, man. I can't get them to, whatever. I give up.
Hey, Matt. For the guys that were here last year,
yeah,
it's kind of a fun question. Are you raising any of these animals to ride?
Possibly. So, possibly. The one thing wasn't shown was the donkeys. I could probably ride those the easiest. The zebras I'm contemplating. So if you have a zebra that is saddle broke, you could sell it for like $20,000 to $25,000. Now, saddle breaking a zebra is a little sketchy. Even being around them is sketchy. Like, they're very like jumpy. Like, they're just not what I thought they would be. Again, probably should have done more research, but that's the only one that I would actually ride. I do plan to ride a bull again, probably not this year, but probably next year. I'm going to try to bring some people with me if they're dumb enough, as dumb as I am, to do it. Because again, I want to always train myself and my being that fear, I can't see it, but I'm giving it all this weight and all this power inside of my life. And so when I overcome that fear, it helps me overcome that fear everywhere else in my life.
Yeah, I went home and told my wife that story with the bull, and I was like, I think I want to do it. And she was like, not a chance. And I was like, so I just started picking my battles a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I was like, we'll approach it later.
So that was one where my wife was like, you're an idiot. This is stupid. You shouldn't do this. But I was just like, I'm not going to die. I mean, now there's a slight chance like I could have died, like a really slight
Almost
chance.
did.
Yeah. There's a slight chance, but I was like, I'm kind of an extremist. So I'm like, what's the worst thing that happens? I break my neck and I'm in a wheelchair. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm in. Now, I'm also talking to her. I'd like to do Everest. That's probably a battle that I won't win. And I'll probably just say, okay, fine, I won't do it. Because the risks are a little bit higher than riding a bull from my perspective. But, again, that's where she's just an awesome, amazing support system. And she's like, I think you're an idiot. I think this is stupid, but go for it. And you know what? I paid the price. When I ruptured my Achilles, there was a lot of moments where I needed her help. And she's like, you chose to ride the bull. Figure it out. Okay, fair enough. Do you have a question in the back?
Matt, Connor Cushman from North Georgia. Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Your presentation last year really stuck out to me. So I was glad to see you back.
Thanks.
I liked what you said about waking up with aim and waking up with a vision.
Mhm.
I was curious if you could just expound on like tactically what
Yeah.
that looks like for you. Like the vision that you wake up with, is it near term? Is it long term? Is it a specific phrase? And then like, how do you stay focused on that consistently every day?
Yeah, look, the morning is the most important part. If you haven't read the book, Make Your Bed, there's a famous military general who wrote a book called Make Your Bed. And it was basically in the military, they teach you to wake up and make your bed because then you have control over your day. You have one win before your day even really starts. And so I took that to heart and I really try to win my morning. I wake up every day. Well, the alarm used to be set for 4:17. I've moved it earlier. Somebody gave me shit that as I got older, I should move it later. And I was like, fuck you, I'm going to go earlier. So now my alarm goes off at 3:51 in the morning and I get up and every single morning right above my dresser is my vision board. So when I go to get my workout clothes on, like I'm looking at my vision immediately first thing in the day. And then as a part of my morning routine, I sauna, I cold plunge, I work out, but I also journal, I also read, and I also review my goals. And that's what really helps me stay on track. If you haven't read the book Atomic Habits, that's a great book. I've used a version of a habit tracker to track my habits to make sure I'm dialed in and I'm on point. But I would be lying if I said I was perfect at it. Like there's days where I will look at my journal 3 times a day, and then there's weeks where I won't look at it once. And when I find myself in that rut, I have to make a choice of how long do I want to stay here. And immediately when I recognize like, ooh, I haven't been interacting with my vision or my goals enough, I'll go back, I read my 5-year vision, I have it on my phone. If I need to go further out, I'll read my 25-year vision, that's in my journal. If I need to go really far out and get super inspired, I'll read my 50-year vision and I'll go read that. And all of them read as like a compelling Disney story that I would pay money to sit and watch in the theaters. And so when I read it, I actually like can feel it. I actually like can see it in my mind. And then it becomes much easier for me to take the actions I need to in my life because it feels so real to me. Does that help?
Yeah, nice job. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thank you. Do you have a question?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. One dud.
No, so really enjoy. I mean, every time you talk, like last year, I know we have a lot of people that weren't there. What really was powerful in the talk, and I know a couple of us was talking about that, is if you want to touch on, getting better, like 1%.
Yeah.
The one, like I think that was super powerful, and I think a lot of them could really appreciate that.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to. So look, if you get 1% better every single day, you will be 37 times better by the end of the year than you started the year. All of us have the ability to just get 1% better. I've done it in this ranching industry. I've gotten 1% better every single time I talk to somebody. I've gotten 1% better every single time I digest a podcast. And that 1% doesn't just make me incrementally better. It compounds and makes me drastically better. Now, alternatively, if you get 1% worse every day, the same thing is going to happen, right? It's going to compound, it's going to snowball, and you're going to be dramatically worse. But I think a lot of times in business especially, we think we have to go solve all of these problems, gain all of these skills, and become this totally new human overnight, or we're not going to be successful. And in reality, if you could just pick one small trait a month and master that one small trait, by the end of the year, you will be a master of 12 new traits. You will be more than 37 times better by the end of the year. And so from my perspective, my life, I just try to get 1% better every single day at everything I'm doing. Do I do it? No, I missed the mark. But like 1% better for me looks like right now we're in parenting phase and it's chaos, man. Like my daughter's nuts. My son's even crazier. And the 5-month-old doesn't look any different. Like it's chaos. And so I was like, man, how do I become the best dad I possibly can be? Well, the way I know how to do it is I go study people that I think are good fathers. Now, I've never, most of the time, had conversations with these people, so I don't know it. But perception, my perception is my reality. My perception is they're good parents. Well, one of the people I studied was Jesse Itzler. I love how he shows up for his kids, at least on social media. I don't think it's fake because I know him pretty well, but I love how he shows up. So I went and consumed as much content as I could from him about parenting. And the one thing I took away from that was you're never too tired for your children. Literally last night I got home. I was in Salt Lake City with David for 2 days, got home, got to the house at 6:00. My wife wanted the kids to take a bath and then go to bed. And my daughter's like, can we go on the trampoline? Can we go on the trampoline? Can we go on the trampoline? Like I was exhausted. I didn't really want to go on the trampoline, but immediately in my mind, it was like, you're never too tired for your kids. I'm like, yes, 5 minutes when the timer goes off, we come in and take a bath. So I set my parameters, I set my boundaries, but then I said yes for my kids. And so I felt like yesterday I got 1% better as a parent because of all the work I've been doing to say yes to my kids and never being too tired. All right, Aaron, want the stage?
Let's see, I was going to try to find my picture at your ranch.
Oh, it's there somewhere.
But, with the longhorns had me scared. But yeah, I was terrified of the longhorns, but the zebras were actually the most dangerous for sure. As you get close to them and you think they're as soft as everything else and they start chomping on you.
Yeah, they're nibblers.
You guys have seen if you follow me on social media, you see Matt and I have a lot of similar habits. And maybe last month every day I was doing my 4 a.m. my 4 a.m. wake up and my workout and first one to the office and all the things. And I said, outwork me, I dare you. And the only person that replied was Matt. And he goes, I might. And I said, that was for everybody but you. I said, I was challenging everybody but you on that because I've been lucky enough to see everything that you've done over the past while. I have a trivia question for you.
Okay.
When did the Real Estate Rockstars podcast start? What year?
It would have been 2013 or 14. It would have been 2014 is my guess.
Yeah. How do you know?
Because I was 24 years old and I was working for Pat Hyben when he started Real Estate Rockstars. And I was actually hired by Pat Hyben originally to launch Real Estate Rockstars and build the podcast.
Yeah, that's so we were talking about 10-year plan, right? Like the whole 10-year concept idea. It is, I mean, Matt showed the picture last year of him and Pat, like with the Real Estate Rockstars logo, like on the first recording day. And it is a pretty special thing that you've gotten to come back here.
Really special. And
Matt's a powerhouse. He's been a powerhouse as the CEO of Go Abundance. Obviously, it's not even the stuff that he talks about and his growth. But so 10 years ago, he got hired to help start a podcast, which became this podcast, which is pretty darn cool.
Really cool.
When I met Matt, he was a volunteer at an event like this, right? So he was just one of the guys in the back that said, I can't afford to be in the room, but I want to be in the room. And then soon after that, he abandoned Pat and latched on to David Osborne. And
it's a different story for a different time.
Pat and David are still friends over it. But when it comes to like just a crazy amount of growth that you can have you didn't graduate from college.
No, I dropped out.
Right. Dropped out of college while he was volunteering at an event like this to say, I just want to hang out with people like that instead. Let me see what I can do to add value. And so he added a ton of value for free. And then he added a ton of value at very low paying wages for a long time. And David Osborne and I were business partners in a lot of different businesses. And Matt has made us millions of dollars on small little decisions that he's made at different times. So anyway, getting to see your growth is awesome. But as far as like the taking notes and the why and the implementation stuff, it's also really of just what's possible. And when he's telling you how he did it and that, like his 10-year growth, I bet, I know you're a big dreamer.
Yeah.
But I guess my last question would be, so when you started that podcast with Pat,
yeah.
So back then, what was the dream then?
Well, I thought podcasts were stupid. I thought it was a fad, and I was like, it was a ticket to get inside of Pat's world. And I recognized young when I worked at a country club, like all I needed was a ticket to get inside of these guys' world. And then I could serve them and be of value and something else would take form. And I learned that from my dad. My dad went to school to be a gym teacher of all things, and then got inside of a world and stayed employed there for 38 years. And so I recognized what you think you're going into for something oftentimes isn't going to be the end result. And so Pat, the guy, was really big into launching podcasts. I can't remember his name. John Lee Dumas was the guy's name. And he was the first guru who taught people how to do podcasts. And Pat's original vision was, let's launch a podcast so we can teach real estate agents how to launch their own podcasts and create real estate radio. That was one of the initial names he wanted to do was Real Estate Radio. So he wanted to be a platform that taught people how to do podcasting that paid him a subscription. It didn't work, obviously, and we had to pivot a bunch of times. And now it's in really good hands, much better hands. And it was just all morphed into what different things we would have never imagined. But when I first started, he was like, I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm like, I don't even know what a podcast is. That sounds stupid. I don't know.
Well, did you think your life would be as cool as it is now 10 years ago?
No, I actually was just journaling about that yesterday. If you told me 10 years ago that my life would look like it is now, I would have said, yeah, probably when I'm 50. I would have said, yeah, someday. Like, yeah, someday. It would have never have happened as fast as I thought. It would have never been as fun as I thought. And it would have never been with as much joy-filled moments as I have now. I mean, I get to work with great people on my team. I get to have a lot of fun with my family. I get to meet amazing people like you. I get to talk to incredible people like you. And it just makes me look at myself every day and say, what's possible 10 years from now that you can't possibly comprehend today? And that's what I ask myself every day. Like, what are you going to do in 10 years that today, the version of you today could not even comprehend?
Yeah. Like how big can you really do it? And when you met Pat, like, so before he hired you and before I met you as a volunteer at an event, you met Pat like on a bus at like a Boys and Girls Club thing?
Volunteering at a program called CHIPS, which stands for Children with Incarcerated Parents. Yeah. And I was a volunteer. I thought I was God's gift to the universe. I had a little silk screening business in Wisconsin. And when my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, said, I'm going to move to DC, I said, great, I'm going to come with you. And she's like, I didn't invite you. I'm like, I don't care. I'm coming with you. And so I sold my business. So I had like $23,000. Like I thought I was like amazing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm 23 years old. I got 20 grand in the bank. Like I'm untouchable, right? And so when we first got out there, I was like, I'm just going to go give back. I'm just going to go volunteer, right? Like I've arrived. Like I'm done. And so I went on Craigslist, and like Craigslist is a theme in my life, but I went on Craigslist, and I should be sponsored by them, but I went on and I found this camp. It was Children with Incarcerated Parents, and it was in walking distance from the sublease that I had found on Craigslist as well. And I was like, I'll just go do this. Like, that sounds like a cool way to see the city and just meet some people and do something. And the day we took the kids from Maryland, to the inner city of DC, I had an additional chaperone, and my additional chaperone was Pat Hyben. And one of the things that I've prided myself on is I always remain super curious. And so literally that day, my goal was to ask Pat as many questions as I could. And I'll never forget, I asked him, I'm like, so what do you do? He's like, I'm a real estate investor. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, I'm a New York Times best-selling author. And I was like, oh my God, one of these guys? Like, here we go, right? But I just remained super curious. I had no interest in getting into transactional real estate, but I went and bought his book, read it in its entirety the next day, then followed up with him on Twitter and sent him a tweeter, or whatever you call it. And I said, like, hey, Pat, I read your book. What would it take to have coffee with you? And he's like, meet me at this place at this time. And I went and had coffee with him. And I just asked questions. And then finally, at some point, he flipped the script and asked me questions. And when he did, he started seeing opportunities for us to work together and us to do something together. And he took me through all these personality assessments. I remember he's like, you cheated on this. I'm like, how did I cheat on this? He's like, you have the most unique profile I've ever seen. You cheated on this. I'm like, dude, I didn't cheat I don't know how to cheat on a personality assessment. And then now knowing me, I think he would say I didn't cheat on the assessment, but I just remained super curious the entire time. And I've recognized and understood, and I said this last year, service is the Trojan horse to knowledge. If you want to learn anything in this world, go serve somebody that's doing it, and they will give you all of the knowledge for free. A lot of people aren't willing to do it. A lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. I was just fortunate that I was raised to put in the work, and I was raised to go ask questions, and I was raised to serve, and it served me exponentially more than I ever thought possible.
Yeah. You serving others has served you well.
Way more than I thought.
All right. That was awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Man. Appreciate you.
All right, Real Estate Rockstars. So hopefully you guys loved hearing one of our speakers from last month's Mastermind. If you are considering joining us for next year, now is the time to sign up. We're only going to have ticket sales for the next 30 to 45 days. And after that, we cut it off so that way we can focus on providing value and not selling tickets. So for the event this next year, February 25th to 27th in Austin, Texas, if you're interested in getting a ticket, you can go to realestaterockstarsmastermind.com. And if you want to chat with me about anything, as always, come find me on Instagram at Aaron Amuchastegui. Thanks for listening.